Good morning from Bromley in Kent, which today becomes one of the many boroughs, all London boroughs in fact, 32 of them now, which will be included in the ULEZ scheme. Designed to improve air quality, but of course it's extremely controversial, and motorists in particular who own cars which do not comply with the emissions level are furious. Let's talk now. I believe he's in the studio there with you, Howard Cox, who wishes to be London Mayor for the Reform Party in London. Good morning, Howard. It feels like this day has been a long time in the making. What is motivating Sadiq Khan to include, I believe it's about 3.5 million more people within the ULEZ charging scheme?
Hi, Bev. Basically, what's motivating him is the amount of money he can take out of these people. It's as simple as that. There's no reason for doing it to improve air quality. His own TfL and even recently Imperial College, which his deputy mayor tried to manipulate the results. There'll be no demonstrable increase or benefit to air quality by moving the ULEZ all the way out to the M25. It's a complete sham. It's a complete con from a very dishonest mayor.
He would, of course, say that it is time, and there are global influences which are very much pushing this agenda. It is time for us to accept that the car is no longer a luxury that we can afford from a planetary environmental point of view, particularly older diesel and petrol cars. What would you say to that, Howard?
Well, try telling 37 million voters who own cars, and some of them 2 cars, 3 cars, and there's trucks and vans. This is an essential part of our life. It's the very fabric of our commercial and the heartbeat of our economy. It's madness what's happening. What we need to do is incentivise people to move to cleaner fuel technology. We shouldn't need to actually hit people in the pocket. And that's what this dishonest mayor, and I keep saying dishonest, there's so much dishonesty around it, it's reeking of it in City Hall in London. The fact is, people want to drive, it's part of the most important part of our lives, it's the freedom of our lives.
The scrappage scheme, of course, is designed to help people whose vehicles don't comply. Correct me if I'm wrong, is it diesel cars that have been made after 2016, but petrol cars after 2006 that don't comply? Before, sorry, 2006. Is that right?
Yes, that is right indeed, but that scrappage scheme doesn't touch the sides. And the irony of it, this £2,000 for a car, for a non-compliant car, most of those non-compliant cars are being sold to go outside of London, where they can pollute out there. It seems that's OK. That's an incredible irony in this. And the £2,000, you know, we're looking now that compliant cars, diesel and petrol compliant cars, they're increasing in value. That £2,000 doesn't wash.
It really doesn't. When you talk to people who have got cars that they're having to sell, and we will be talking to some of them here in Bromley this morning. There was an interesting angle to this story, Howard, that I read in the paper yesterday that I believe you were partly behind. And this was the scaffolder that took TfL to court, if I remembered correctly, because he's run up about £11,000 of fine, and the court concluded that he doesn't have to pay that money. Just explain why.
Well, Noel Wilcox, he runs a scaffolding company in northwest London, and he approached me, and I was very honoured that he did do that. I managed to get it into the Sun as an exclusive. And what he did was challenge the fact that the signs themselves do not tell you. When you go into London, the Greater London, you see the word ULEZ, low emission zone or ultra low emission zone. You do not see any thing below that says you have to pay if you're non-compliant. And that's the point. But by doing that, in fact, I can tell you a little anecdote. There's a person who's a good friend of mine in America came over here and actually hired a car, and it was actually, ironically, non-compliant. And they were hit with a big fine that was sent to them over there when they entered the centre of London. But they thought they were coming into a clean air zone. And she spoke to her husband, who was in the passenger seat, and he said, "Oh, isn't this great? We're going to a place which is very clean air." They didn't know they were paying for the privilege.
So how does that need to be addressed? Presumably there's huge cost in TfL changing all of the signage to make it obvious that there is a charge being incurred in order to clean up the air.
Absolutely right, Bev. That's what it's got to do. All of the signs have to be replaced completely, and they've got to have a big C on it. The congestion charge does have that, and that's accepted that, oh, if you see that sign, you're going to have to pay something. But there's nothing for ULEZ, no clarification whatsoever, and they're opening up all over the place, even outside people's driveways. When they just move out of their driveway, they've got to pay £12.50.
Howard, of course, Sadiq Khan would argue fiercely, and he's been doing it all over the media for the last few weeks, that the point of this is a long-term project to save British lives from pollution.
Yeah, we hear this all the time. Sadiq Khan actually thrives on emotion, not fact. And I repeat what I said just now. Imperial College is saying that ULEZ will have no demonstrable impact on the air quality we breathe. TfL already told them last time that. And I did a CBR, Centre of Economic and Business Research, analytical report, which actually reported that the cost of a ULEZ is approaching £1 billion, £800 million is what it's going to cost to the economy. In other words, it reduced London's GDP by nearly £1 billion every year. Where's he coming from? All he needs to do is work with drivers, work with people to try and get clean fuel technology put in place. And there's loads of that around, and it's here for us to take and introduce now. He won't do that because he's hell-bent on net zero and the 2030 ban.
Where do you sit, though, in terms of public transport and the measures which should go along any ultra-low emission zone or any low emission zone? Surely there needs to be decent public transport options for people alongside.
Absolutely right. I couldn't agree more. We must do that. But we've got a public transport system that he's actually increased, I think, fares by 6%. So not is he finding and hitting people in the pocket who drive a car, he's also hitting people who need public transport. And let's not forget, one of the things he ignores is how much pollution is in the underground. We're looking at 1,800% more particulate matter in the underground. So he's forcing people to actually endure poor health, poor air quality, whilst taking money from streets above which are good air quality. It makes no sense, Bev.
Yeah. OK, Howard Cox from Reform, thank you for talking to us this morning. If you are just tuning in, Andrew Pearce is in the studio, as always, today. And I'm down here in Bromley in Kent on one of the main high streets. I don't know if it is actually the high street. I've got a meteorologist here, face you'll be very familiar with. Jim Dale is with us. Jim, you're listening to the conversation. Obviously, you couldn't hear what Howard was saying there.
I'm aware what he's about.
But
yeah,
you know how Howard feels about this and how people who are pro-car feel about this. Would you like to give us the other side as to why we need to take these measures?
Well, first of all, this is a good day for Londoners, for Greater London. Small steps, but I think it's a bigger step for the Greater London area. And not just the Greater London area, we've got to talk the country as well, because there's many similar schemes going on in other cities.
There are 15 across the country.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the direction of travel. I'm not going to take this away. So it's about the environment, it's about people's health, and there's a little bit in terms of making small steps in terms of climate change and mitigating that. So I absolutely say this is a good day. Those that oppose ULEZ have lost. They need to get over it and need to move on. And that's where we are at this moment.
Is it too much stick, though, Jim, and not enough carrot at the moment for something that nobody actually voted for?
Well, when you say nobody voted for, we elected a mayor. I say London has elected a mayor a few years ago. So he's got a mandate, much as the government have got a mandate to do what they do. And, you know, much of what this government does, I don't agree with. But because we elected them, you have to go with it. You have to be law-abiding, you have to do the right things, and you have to accept what comes. It's exactly the same with the mayor. I appreciate, and I think the mayor appreciated after Keir Starmer had words with him after the Uxbridge by-election, that there needs to be some movement in the what you might call the what we're trying to say, the payback to car drivers, to these people who would lose their cars. I understand that, and I think he's gone some way. £2,000 is not a small amount of money for, say, a 2006 car, if you see where I'm going. Yeah. So there's always when you make movements like this, there's always going to be some that get left behind, and I realise that, and there is sympathy in that direction. But I think 90% of cars and vehicles are compliant in the London area and beyond. So you know, this is the movement. This is going forward. This is the direction of travel, as I say.
There'll be some people, Jim, who will say, at the moment, when bills are going up, we're in this cost of living, cost of lockdown crisis, whatever you want to call it, the hangover of the last few years. The time is not right now to increase this at this moment for all of the people who are coming here this morning in Bromley, opening their shops, paying huge electricity bills, which show no sign of going down this winter, electricity and gas. He needs to wait. Sadiq Khan should have given it, what, 6 to 12 months. It wouldn't have made any difference to the planet if he was to do that, would it?
This was a long time coming anyway. Let's make that clear. This has been on the agenda for a long time, and what drivers have got to do and have to do to get to be compliant or to scrap their cars has been on for a long time. I think we could continue saying this forever. If we said this next year, for example, I don't think the economics would be that much better. So we're looking at the economic argument. I think we've got to go back to the central government and say, you put us there for the most part, you take us out. There's one little piece that's missing, if I'd like to add, and that is, if it's a financial thing, maybe knock on the doors of those that have caused these problems more than anybody, and that is the big oil industry that provides the likes of the petrol stations. Maybe they should be putting something in terms of the financial side to offset that, rather than necessarily Londoners, people in the street like these people surrounding us today. That should have happened, and nobody's knocking on their door, and I find it strange.
All right, Jim, thank you. You're going to be with me this morning. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. If you are just tuning in, I am in Bromley in Kent this morning. Andrew Pearce is in London. We're talking to locals here because, of course, the ULEZ expansion day has arrived, all 32 London boroughs now included. Good morning, Gemma. Now, we can have a look at your sign. I think we know your position on this. How long have you been campaigning, and why are you so against it?
My partner Oliver and I first got involved after Christmas. So about January we went to the Trafalgar Square protest, and we've been to most of them ever since.
Now, those were the protests which Sadiq Khan said was full of conspiracy theorists and lunatics. How did you feel about that?
We're certainly not lunatics. We know exactly what we're talking about. I'm afraid paying £12.50 a day is not going to clean up our air. How is that going to clean up our air? £12.50 a day is ludicrous. You know, there are other ways, if our air needs cleaning up, which I personally don't think it does. It's, you know, paying to do that is not going to help.
And it's your partner who is a tree surgeon. Your business, your family business, is a tree surgeon. Now, your vehicle, I believe, is not compliant. Do you get a little bit of time, though, in order to make it compliant?
No, as of today, that's it. We're paying £12.50 a day for Oliver to go to work. We're a family of 6. We're already in a cost of living crisis. We're finding it very hard to make ends meet. This has put us under huge pressure, and as Oliver says, tree surgery is not a price list. It's not like going to the shops and buying a product. It's not a price list. So he's then got to charge his customers. They're going to haggle with him. In effect, this £12.50 a day is just going to go to Sadiq Khan, and it's not going to change anything with our air, because he will still be driving that vehicle.
So he can't use the scrappage scheme, or it doesn't work out financially for you as a business to take that money?
No, financially, that does not help us at all. We're not in a position to get finance. We cannot get a van for the £2,000 scrappage that is a tipper truck that enables him to do his job. No, it's no help to us whatsoever. So therefore, it is pay Sadiq Khan £12.50 a day to go to work, to do his quotes. Sometimes he's not even earning money. He's out doing quotes. He's out collecting logs. He's not earning money for that, but he will still be paying. It's not fair.
Now, Sadiq Khan would say you've had time, you've had plenty of warning to invest in a new vehicle. What would you say to that?
Where's the money for that? Where is the money for that? Because we're not in a position, we can't get finance. We've already had to finance the tools, the chipper for Oliver to go to work. We've had a multitude of things happen. We've just got over COVID, where we were locked down and work was very thin on the ground. People don't have money to get their trees cut at the moment. They're struggling to make ends meet. Having a tree cut can be a luxury. So our business is already suffering, and this is just causing it to suffer further.
I would also imagine that Oliver, and possibly yourself, you care about the environment. The very nature of his job is that he works with trees. It's not as though you're saying that you don't care about the environment, but you feel it's been, what, too soon, too restrictive, there should be more exemptions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Oliver, as you know, many of his customers will say, he talks people out of having their trees cut down because he says it's a beautiful tree, leave it where it is. We can just make it look pretty, you know, whatever. He doesn't go around just chopping trees down for money. He cares about the environment. We all do. But as I say, no, we haven't had time to get used to this idea. We haven't had time to get our finances in place to get a new vehicle, and it is just about money.
And it could literally mean the end of your business.
Absolutely, and that is going to put us into huge hardship. And it's, you know, it's the mental health side of things as well. I mean, you know, I hope Oliver doesn't mind me saying, but he has been depressed over this. I've seen him physically upset about how is he going to feed his family, how is he going to keep a roof over his family's heads. It's heartbreaking. What Sadiq Khan is doing to us is heartbreaking.
OK, well, thank you, Gemma. Stay with me for a little while, won't you? Of course, Sadiq Khan would say that what he's trying to do is to help people and to save lives. He says that a lot. One strange thing about ULEZ, I think, is the exemption of classic cars. Phil is here to tell me a little bit about that. So this is any car, Phil, that's created before 1973.
Well, it's not that. It's actually over 40 years old.
Right.
But it has to be registered historic to get the historic tax status in effect and get the exemption. So.
But does it seem a little bit? I don't know. Can you explain the logic behind it? I guess these are old cars, but they're often the biggest engines and they're kicking out a lot of fuel, and yet you can now drive them down the high street and not pay £12.50.
Well, depends how local law's being done, really, hasn't it? I think the better way to do it is keep old vehicles going and not waste vast resources producing these horrible electric vehicles which do not help the environment at all. Like, take for example, when the little kiddie goes out mining in some third world country and pollute the local water supply, the locals didn't get consultation of that, on mining cobalt, lithium, whatever, and have the severe health effects from that. Also, fairly recently, there was a cargo ship fire. OK, they said, oh, it's 50 electric cars. They went up to 500. Then it's 5,000 electric vehicles. The whole thing just caught fire, and it was almost impossible to put it out. And that's the danger of electric vehicles.
Yeah.
And also, if an electric vehicle gets involved in a minor shunt, it's written off.
Yeah.
There's the danger of the batteries.
It's a good point, actually. Thank you, Phil, because, of course, these will be the classic cars of the future. Some of these older cars now, which aren't exempt from ULEZ, Andrew. Some of the diesel cars, the petrol cars, anything after 2016 for a diesel car, anything after 2006
I can sort of
for a petrol
clarify
car.
that a little bit. It's actually Euro 6 diesel and Euro 4 petrol. So
Right.
that's basically what it is. Look at the COC, certificate of conformity of the actual V5 or the logbook. And that will tell you what Euro standard that car actually is.
Right, I see. OK. But it isn't always entirely clear. Thank you, Phil. I'm going to be here, Andrew, as you know, until midday this morning, and possibly a little bit after as well, to talk to Mark and Pip, because it's a very divisive issue. Obviously, Sadiq Khan is very proud today. He will be bragging on the global stage that he has the largest car tariff zone in the entire world. But is that necessarily what is right for British people and for British businesses and for people who frankly don't want to have to scrap a car which is perfectly good but might be kicking out a little more emissions than a newer car or an electric car? Back to you.
Bev, lots of emails coming in, of course, texts. Anne says, ULEZ, my guess is Mayor Khan doesn't care who it affects. He's doing it all with his eyes set on the over-there horizon of his next job after he leaves this one. Remember, he did a mini-world tour a few months ago to promote his CV on the world stage. Next job, the World Health Organization, United Nations, or similar. It would explain why he's listening to Starmer, as well as it being car tax to fill his budget black hole. But let's be quite clear about Keir Starmer, by the way. So Keir Starmer has only latterly become a reluctant critic of ULEZ since the Labour Party miserably failed to win the Uxbridge by-election, which they should have won at a canter, but the Tories turned it into a referendum on ULEZ. Dave says if Sadiq Khan really believes ULEZ is about cleaning the air quality and not filling the huge gap in his finances, he'll have no objection to putting the £12.50 charges and the fines he collects into the scrappage scheme to make it fit for purpose. The fine, of course, is £180, £90 if you pay it within the first 14 days. Jules says there are a lot of causes of asthma other than the exhaust pollutants, dry, stale air indoors, dust mites and the like, but every vehicle in London produces tyre and brake dust. The latter can be very dangerous as it contains asbestos. This ULEZ expansion is just a money-grabbing scheme. You're dead right, Jules. Lots more coming in. Do send us your views, your texts, your emails, your tweets. Derek says, why is no one talking about the Glasgow system? There is no daily charge for non-compliant vehicles.
Yep.
They're simply banned. And if you get a £60 fine, which doubles each time you enter the zone, please highlight this alongside the London ULEZ. Bev.
Yeah, you know what, there's another interesting issue, and he's absolutely right, because there are 15 zones now across the UK. One problem with this system is the car cloning. So more than 5,000 drivers were fined £160 since October because they cloned cars. So the admin issues with this system are very costly as well. We're going to be looking at that and the implications about the data and the surveillance. We got loads of topics. We're going to be here in Bromley all morning.